All right, this morning I was watching along with a lot of other people of what inflation numbers we're going to do here in the U.S. Consumer prices rose at 2.7%, less than expected. Wall Street is responding the way you would think. 1.1% gain on the Dow at this moment, a 9.95 or almost a 1% gain on the S&P, and a 1.12 gain on the NASDAQ. As of right now, it's been a positive day. Looking at where we saw prices go up, a 0.2% increase in shelter costs. Food prices were flat. Energy fell. New vehicle prices were unchanged. So all of these areas where tariffs were supposed to have an effect didn't seem to have the effect people thought. Joining us to tell us what all of this means to you, the consumer, is our analyst, Kristin Bentz. Kristin, did I sum that up fair? Was I fair about that?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. That's fantastic. Excellent job.
So what does this say to you? If we see housing costs went up, they're 0.2%, but you've seen these other areas of big concern with tariffs not, what does this say to someone like you watching what's coming?
Okay, first of all, shelter is a lagging indicator. People forget that. So it's kind of like you pay attention to it, but you really don't because it's kind of not like a real-time indicator. What this tells me is right, wrong, or indifferent, Trump's policies are working. Okay, they are working. And so food inflation is down. The reason why it's down is because gas prices are down. So energy independence and bringing those energy costs down, that drives everything because you have trucking. Trucking influences food prices. It's all interrelated like a big spider web, right? And so what that tells me, and Trump really needed this because, you know, a lot of data is coming out that the U.S. consumer is highly leveraged, right? Like all these fast food companies, people aren't really dining out and doing fast casual, like even McDonald's. Their numbers were good, but they are noticing the consumers are trading down, they're skipping breakfast. Chipotle said the same thing. So, you know, it's always that question, who is it getting better for, Mike, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so there is a segment of the population that is very much so still struggling. Those jobs numbers weren't amazing that came out. So I will always give you the data as I see it, regardless of politics. So what this does tell me is that everyone was hoping that these tariffs, they were like rooting against the American consumer, that the consumer is going to get crushed. That didn't happen. And it's not happening. Why is it not happening? Because tariffs don't exist in a vacuum, right? Everyone has like a different tariff that's affecting them, right? And they're not, the companies and the countries are bearing the brunt of this, not the U.S. consumer.
Yeah, and to your point, I just looked at Brent crude oil prices. Oil is trading at just over $65. It's $65.28 or 65.28. So that's a pretty low number for oil prices. If energy costs remain down, is that going to be an advantage? And are we going to continue to see the moderation in prices? Or are people concerned that I heard this morning? I was watching one of the news channels. They said, but you have to remember a lot of these tariff deals that have gone into effect went into effect in early August. So if we're going to see this bump, it's going to happen. So it seems like each month they're predicting tariffs are going to bump prices, and it just hasn't happened yet.
Exactly. And there's a huge, portion of the country that really hates hearing good news, unfortunately. And people are just rooting and tariffs. And, oh, my God, the tariffs. But so far, consumers really have not felt them yet. And if you're actually looking at corporate America and CEOs and what they're saying that the tariffs really haven't impacted them like they feared. So all this is very good news. Remember, perception is reality, right? Mm-hmm. And uncertainty makes the market a very shaky place. Well, today there is lots of green on my screen, and I like to see that. So the trend is your friend. We like to see that. We want to see this push forward. I think a lot of CEOs are feeling much better. I think they're leveraging AI and technology and to bring costs down. And I think because of that, they're going to start hiring a bit more. People were scared. And CEOs were scared. No one really knew it was going to happen. When I worked for Jim Cramer, we would get calls about certain stocks that were being hit, and the balance sheet was great, and the stock was doing great, and people would ask, and we would say, well, it just got Cramered. So Trump has that similar effect. He'll say something hilarious or something completely nuts, and then it drives the market down. So I think this was the hard data that the U.S. consumer and the media, quite frankly, needed to see. Because love him or hate him, his policies do benefit the U.S. consumer and the American economy, and it's working.
So when you look at the two different factors, the two areas I'd like you to comment on, one is on consumers. Are we going to see spending? Are people going to loosen their wallets and spend a little more? And the other side of it are the job creators. The anticipation of a possible rate cut in September and these good numbers, are the job creators going to say, okay, we feel comfortable creating more jobs and expanding?
Wow, that's a multi-layered question. So
Right.
If you guys follow Polymarket at all, it's looking like the market's looking for a 25 basis point rate cut in September, I would hope. So I think Powell just looks like a cartoon character at this point. So they're going to have to act and do something. Vis-a-vis the consumer, you and I always talk about credit card delinquencies, like over 90 days and mortgage rate delinquencies and all of that. There is a very small sliver of hope this month with credit card balances. So they may not be spending as much, but they're definitely paying down that credit card debt. And if you have the amount of money to do that, that's a very good sign for the consumer. I think regardless, the lower quintile of consumers is under pressure because they haven't really gotten off the mat yet, but they will. But that upper end luxury consumer, they're ready to spend. And so they kind of took their licks. They sat back a little bit, but they definitely are spending. I think you're going to see people start feeling a little bit better, and I like that. And look, those numbers for Prime Day on your show were phenomenal. So consumers are definitely spending, but they're extremely thrifty and thoughtful with the way that they're spending their money.
What last question is about wage growth, because inflation numbers are one thing. We're increasing at 2.7%. I believe last month we saw 4.4% in wage growth. Are we going to continue to see wage growth, or because of the slowing of the job numbers that you saw, are wages not going to increase as quickly?
So we did see an uptick in hours worked, which is a fantastic indicator and a very positive indicator. Wages are up, and that was our biggest problem under Biden, is that wages just didn't keep up with inflation. So as inflation comes down, those wages are going to tick up. So I hope that we see more of that. The big question is, are companies going to structurally hire more people? Because the people that I'm talking to, especially in the tech industry, if you're a middle manager making like $200,000 or $300,000 working remote, like your head is on the chopping block. So honestly, I've got twin 17-year-olds. They started back at school this week. My son really wants to get into welding and engineering because that's really hard to be defeated by AI with. And I had to say, you know what, that's a great idea. Let's explore that. So I think you're going to see the rise of more vocational, jobs coming onto the market that are needed. And I think we're going to see tech still doesn't know what it's going to do with AI, right? How they're going to optimize it. So we're in a very interesting liminal time in the jobs market.
Kristin, I always love talking to you, and I know you are scrambling this morning with everything, all the directions you're being pulled, but I always appreciate you making time for this audience.
I always will, Mike. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, that is Kristin Bentz, our resident expert when it comes to what's going on in the market.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch and listen to the new season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.